to talk about SPICED for a second. One of the things that Skuid is going to be really helpful for is custom RevOps, sales ops, tools, widgets, and apps. And one of the places that we are seeing a lot of need in the past year or so is for sales teams that have a methodology, a qualification methodology, a selling methodology, and they might have the training and everyone got the PDF, but how do you actually go from having that methodology and actually, making it a part of your processes? Sometimes folks will do an integration where they'll add those as text fields, either in HubSpot, CRM, or Salesforce, or wherever they're going, but that's very hard to report on. So actually, how do you take that methodology and make it part of your processes in a way that's reportable? You can track your progress. You can use it to coach your teams. And so we worked with a group called Winning by Design that has a methodology called SPICED, and we built it out. And this is kind of what you typically would see in a Skuid app. We're going and we're connecting to whatever data you want. You get kind of a dashboard type experience. In this case, we're connecting to some HubSpot data. We've also got our own database that we're using for some related data there. But what we wanted to be able to do was take this idea of spiced qualification and bring it into the HubSpot deal itself. So that's where the users are spending their time. So how do they actually get there? And so this is where we had some fun working with Aptitude 8 on how do you deploy the right way based on your company strategy. And so if your users are in HubSpot, you want them to stay in there. Well, the way that HubSpot can do this is with CRM cards. We can launch some widgets from here. And so we can pull in that spiced scoring methodology straight into our CRM. And I can see what are the scores for each of those kind of qualification points. It's data driven. It's not just text. I can go and I can actually edit these if I need to. And that's going to save that back. And it'll save, any records back to HubSpot, as well as, whatever else we're pulling from other APIs there. So, again, we're doing, spiced, this particular qualification framework. You may have other methodologies that you're using. And maybe it's not even a methodology. Maybe it's just enforcing a process when a user, could be a support user, is on the phone. How can you guide them through that process in a way that's intuitive and easy? And so that's kind of the first place.
I think before you move on, Matt, the thing I think is, the thing I think is really interesting here. So another example that we run into, and I sort of talked about this earlier for that sort of like support type of user journey, but where we talk about HubSpot versus sort of like a Salesforce or a Dynamics or some of these other things. I think if you're a HubSpot partner, a HubSpot seller, or a HubSpot customer, right? We run into lots of these pieces where it's like, I really want to have this guided user flow with discrete numbers of inputs, and I want to sort of dynamically adjust the next input based on the previous input. And that's really challenging in HubSpot today. And I think what's so exciting about that example is it's a basic one, right? Like, how do we manage the sort of spiced journey? But you can take that concept and really expand it to any number of controlled inputs or dependent fields. And I think even this additional examples we'll touch on actually expand upon that as some of the really custom stuff you can do. But we run into lots of examples in HubSpot where I really want someone to go through these specific screens, this specific field, have this specific data entry. And if we miss a field, it's really detrimental to our business process. And Skuid coming in front of that layer and solving for that problem is I think, huge.
That's great. And I think that highlights one of the things that we've focused on from the beginning, which is you really don't want your users to have to think in terms of navigating a database. Like, wait, which object do I go to in order to make sure that I've got the right, the compliant way of doing things so that the data doesn't end up being bad. And the point is you can kind of not have to worry about any of that. You can really focus on, well, let's build it the right way and not have to worry about whether or not we can get that data in the right context on the right screen. And you're going to have all the controls too. So you talked about like making sure like users are entering the data the right way at the right time. And that's another thing, is that Skuid has this layer of logic at the UI side. So you can say, well, in this scenario, we want this field to be required to guide them through that process. So that's a good segue.
Can I make one more comment that I just realized, which is this is on the deal record, but because these are launched from CRM cards, you can do the exact same thing from deals, contacts, tickets, custom objects, anywhere in HubSpot that you can sort of launch that user journey and contextualize it. That's one of my favorite HubSpot features of like when you open CRM cards, it tells the application you're opening, like what record is this? What object is this? What should show up here? But you can really build these for all sorts of different user journeys. You're not limited by any particular object, which I think is super cool.
No, that's huge. And it actually, it's a repeatable process, right? Because you're doing it the same way every time. You've got this way that custom widgets are deployed in HubSpot with CRM cards, with the actions that open up that pop-up. And so what you can do is, for some of that, you might need, someone who's a developer to wire that up. But once you've done it a few times, someone who's more of a business analyst and they know what the buyer journey should be or whatever, they're going to be empowered to go build whatever they need. And then that deployment is just super easy and super fast. I think there's a lot of implications for what you can do across the different objects, custom, standard, and HubSpot.